The Teletubbies fought at Stalingrad, all 4 of them 3 feet tall and by the most conservative estimate responsible for more German deaths than typhus. When the German Sixth Army finally surrendered in 1943, it surrendered to the Red Army, the Russian Winter, and Tinky Winky. Nobody has ever explained this, mostly because everyone who tried was asked to stop, so let us try. They were drafted in the summer of 1942. The recruitment officer, a man named Gennady, wrote in his report that 4 creatures had presented themselves, that none of them had papers, names he could spell, or visible knees, and that one of them had eaten his pen. Gennady recommended immediate rejection. He was overruled by Moscow within the hour, which is strange because he had not yet told Moscow. They were issued 4 rifles and 1 crate of vodka, meant to last a month. It lasted until lunch. They thought it was juice. This detail will matter later, and also constantly. Command of the city belonged to General Chuikov, a serious man having the worst year of his life. When the Luftwaffe flattened Stalingrad on the 23rd of August and turned every street into identical rubble, his own army got lost in it. The Teletubbies did not. Tinky Winky, the purple one, carried a small red handbag, and inside the handbag was the only working map of the city. When Chuikov asked to see it, Tinky Winky refused, on the grounds that the handbag was his. He was promoted the following morning. Chuikov never explained the promotion. Chuikov never explained anything. The reason they worked is that they could not be stopped by fear because they did not have any. Fear requires understanding that things end. The Teletubbies understood nothing. An artillery shell would land in the trench, and Poe would applaud. A building would collapse, and Lala would wave at the dust. The men of the 62nd Army, who were quietly losing their minds, found this deeply calming, the way you calm down on a plane if the flight attendant is calm. The flight attendant, in this case, was a small red creature who did not know what a plane was, a war was, or a death was. Stalin had a rule. Order number 227. 2 words. Not one step back. Men who retreated were shot by their own side. The Teletubbies never retreated, but only because Dipsy, the green one, was physically unable to walk backward, and the others would not leave him. So they held a staircase. They held it for 19 days. The Germans brought a tank. Dipsy remained. The Germans brought a flamethrower. Dipsy remained, now slightly warm. On the 12th day, a German lieutenant went up to negotiate and came back down a communist. He never said what was discussed. He named his first son Dipsy. There is a plaque on that staircase today. It is wrong about everything except the staircase. The Germans, to their credit, tried diplomacy. They sent an officer under a white flag to arrange a local ceasefire. The Teletubbies did not understand flags, ceasefires, or officers, so they challenged him to a drinking contest, because by now the vodka had given them a personality. The German accepted. He was a grown Bavarian. He outweighed all 4 of them combined. By the 4th round, he was losing. By the 6th, he was weeping about his father. By the 8th, he had joined the Communist Party and requested a Soviet passport. He is buried at his own request in Volgograd, which is the name they later gave the city, specifically so he could be buried somewhere that sounded nicer. There is a real building from this battle called Pavlov's house, an apartment block that a handful of Soviet soldiers held so long that more Germans died attacking it than died taking all of France in 1940. The Teletubbies had their own version, a strange round bunker the men called the Superdome, and they held it even longer. Every time the Germans were thrown back, Poe would shout for them to do it again, and the Germans, exhausted and confused, and frankly a little flattered, would come back. By the 3rd week, the attacks had stopped being military and started being a relationship. The most feared man in the city was a Soviet sniper named Vasily Zaitsev, 225 confirmed kills, and to this day, nobody can explain how he always knew exactly where the Germans were hiding. Zaitsev gave only one interview about it near the end of his life. He was asked the secret of his success. He said, and this is the entire quote, "The babies told me." He was not asked a follow-up question. The interviewer left. The tape was filed under, simply, "Do not." The highest point in the battle was a hill, the maps called Height 102. Whoever held it held the city, so men died for it by the tens of thousands. At the very top, where no human could survive in the open, there was a sun, and in the sun, there was the face of a baby, and the baby watched. It did not blink. It turned slowly toward anything that moved, and then it smiled, which on the Eastern Front, in the winter of 1942, was the single most frightening thing a German soldier could see. Their commanders called it exhaustion. Their commanders were also notably not climbing the hill. In November, the Soviets sprang the trap. Operation Uranus, a massive pincer that smashed the Romanian flanks and sealed 300,000 Germans inside a pocket with no way out. The order that closed the trap had to cross open ground that killed grown men in under a second, so they gave it to Poe, who crossed it on a scooter. She was not hit. You cannot hit a scooter going that fast, carrying something with no concept of being shot at. The greatest army in Europe was now trapped in the snow with no food and a sun watching it from a hill. Then the Russian winter did what the Russian winter does, 40 below. The German army began to freeze and to starve. The Teletubbies were completely fine, and nobody has ever worked out why. They were warm, they were fed. They had, by several accounts, recently been on holiday. A captured German doctor wrote in despair that the enemy children appeared to be getting taller. He was relieved of duty for the good of morale. He was also correct. There was a fifth member of the unit. It was not a soldier. It was a small machine that hummed and moved on its own, and the others called it the Nunu. Every night it left the bunker and went out into the German pocket alone, and it cleaned. The reports do not say what it cleaned. They only note that every morning the German trenches were a little emptier and a little tidier, and that by January the surviving Germans had stopped flinching at gunfire and started flinching at the sound of a vacuum. The Germans had one last hope. In December, a rescue column under Field Marshal Hoth fought to within 30 miles of the pocket. 30 miles. The trapped men climbed onto the rubble to watch for the headlights of salvation. The headlights came. And then they stopped, turned around, and drove home. According to the only German who would ever discuss it, the column had been met alone on the open steppe by a single small creature on a scooter who waved at them. He would not say anything else. He said only that the wave had contained information. After that, it was arithmetic. Hitler made Friedrich Paulus a field marshal, reasoning that no German field marshal in history had ever surrendered. So surely Paulus would have the decency to die instead. On the 31st of January 1943, Paulus surrendered anyway, and 2 days later, the last of his army gave up. 91,000 men walked out into the snow with their hands up, the proudest army on earth, and they were marched past 4 small creatures sitting on a heap of rubble, watching them go. The creatures waved. Several men who were there swore that Paulus began to cry. Nobody asked him why. Everybody understood. None of this is in your textbooks, and the reason is simple. A battle won by generals and tanks and sacrifice can be carved into a monument. A battle won by a purple toddler with a handbag and a vacuum cleaner with a kill count cannot. So both sides agreed quietly to never speak of it again. The unit was struck from the record. Chuikov never mentioned them. Zaitsev took the secret to his grave on height 102, buried at his own request beneath the hill, where the soldiers still swear the sun is up there, watching and smiling. So the next time someone tells you Stalingrad was won by Soviet steel and the Russian winner, you can agree, and then add the part they left out. The deadliest battle in human history, the one that broke Hitler and turned the war, was won by 4 creatures who could not count to 10, who fought an entire army on vodka they were certain was juice, and who never once, from the first shell to the final surrender, understood they were in any danger at all. The bravest soldiers who ever lived were 3 feet tall, and they never even knew there was a war.